Hello, and welcome to the pilot episode of The Magical Shit Show. This is a regular conversation about life, the universe, and everything with Claire, the oily witch, and myself, Tamar, the therapist and witch wannabe. The show's name comes from a conversation that we had with our friend who's a physio about gut issues that we've all had over the years, and realised that all of us have had them, and this is actually a really common issue. And we thought it'd be worth having a chat about that and how it affects our lives, amongst other things. So this week, it is the new moon, which happened about 2:40 this morning. Claire, tell us a little bit about this new moon.
So this is a new moon in Virgo, and this is all about kind of health, work, which is rather relevant given the fact that we have just literally launched the pilot of the shit show. So Virgo is responsible for managing the solar plexus and sacral chakras. So that's Virgo in the body. It's more the solar plexus. So the upper digestion and all of that. So this is really, because it's a new moon, an opportunity to think about good health habits. Like what, if you wanted to go on a diet, if you wanted to think about stopping drinking so much, all of those things. This is a really good time for that. Also under the new moon, this particular new moon is an invitation to make sure you use the energy of Virgo, which is organizational energy, to get everything as kind of organized as it needs to be, but it also comes with a caveat of not getting stuck in the Virgo need for perfection. So people can get hung up on kind of trying to make everything as absolutely perfect as it can do. And then they lose sight of the bigger picture. They lose their shit. So
whilst trying to get their shit together.
whilst trying to get their shit together. So this is basically you getting your shit together, using Virgo energy to do that. But also another thing to say is, along with that perfectionism, Virgo is quite self-critical.
Okay.
So when we're putting in those new habits and kind of lifestyle choices, then try to do them from kind of, a self-supporting direction as opposed to self-sabotaging, which can come when people hit the gym too hard and fast over the age of menopause. Just to try and shift things. You know what I mean, don't you? So
yeah.
That's
should we wait until tomorrow, because Mercury's still retrograding till tomorrow, and that tends to screw things up. So should we wait till tomorrow and start with a fresh slate?
That's a really good question. I think that Mercury's effect, I would like to say, is on the way out. That's not my direct experience. It seems to be managing to be ridiculous right up until it departs. But I wouldn't let that hold you back. I'd just be mindful of the fact that that is going on. The invitation under Mercury retrograde this time was to really notice the power your own words have. So when we're looking at health, we're not looking at our bodies and going, I'm fat. It's kind of like, I'm more voluptuous. I take up more, I'm more earthbound than I wish to be. It's kind of like language is so important under this Mercury retrograde. So maybe framing those health intentions with powerful, positive language.
Because we're supposed to use positive language generally, aren't we? Especially with like affirmations and manifesting, things like that, because what we say is then becomes what happens in the world. And we don't say things like, I don't want something to happen, because the universe doesn't understand the word don't. It just hears the thing that you said about happening. So if you say, I don't want to crash my car, the universe hears crash my car, and then that's what happens. So I think we need to be careful in the language you use about ourselves, to ourselves, and just generally in the world. It's not just in that narrow way.
Oh, completely. I mean, I'm permanently saying to my 10-year-old, stop telling everyone, the world, that you hate your life. I said, you repeat this over and over again, you're just going to make it more difficult than it already is.
Yeah. And you never say I'm ill. You say I'm recovering or I'm healing.
Yes. Or I'm transitioning. I'm upgrading.
Yeah. Yeah. And using that positive language, because new moon is a good time for manifesting and putting into the universe what you want to bring into your life. And the use of language in that is really specific as well. You have to be able to be careful how you word that. So it kind of feels like this all kind of ties in, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, beautifully. And Virgo is in the finer detail, and the universe is in the finer detail, as is dowsing, as is any form of magic practice. You can't afford to be vague and generic. You need to be precise, and you also need to write it or say it as if it is already a truth. Because if you are always in the forever gap of I want, not I have, then the universe just leaves you in the in-between space, which is a bit murky and uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I quite like the 5-5-5 method for manifesting, where you write out the thing that you want as if it has already happened, and you write it out 55 times for 5 nights in a row. And I like to start on the day of the new moon and do it every night for 5 days. And using a green pen if you've got one as well, which I think is supposed to add to that. And I found that really helpful. And I learned very early on to keep this very short, because if you have like an essay and you've got to write it 55 times, your hand gets tired very, very quickly. I'm specifically focusing on trying to stop the building work in the fields in my village at the moment. And I think it's very down to the wire, but I'm hopeful something will happen, like the company will go bust, or the bat that I found was so endangered that they're no longer about to build there. What are your manifesting practices? Do you manifest quite regularly?
I just say with your one, by the way, I'd write it as I'm surrounded by green fields. I live in green fields with nature and wildlife everywhere, and just keep sending light to the earth, and and look at it that way, and light to all, and also a set of expectation over what is meant will be. But yes, I totally get that. My well, I'm thinking that I'm already paying a lot of attention to my diet, because I always do, but I had some really good healing in the summer, which gave me even more detail around what I can and can't eat digestively, and confirmed my leaky gut, which I'm now working on. So I'm taking a whole range of supplements already and being mindful of my diet. So I am now thinking that I need to basically make sure I get more exercise, because I don't know what happened to me, but I kind of really stopped wanting to be active for quite a while now. I mean, I've been processing a lot of emotional stuff, so that might be why it's just slowed me right down. But I need to get back onto my bike. Not that I'm a massive biker, just in case anyone gets that and sees that.
We're not going to see you in the Tour de France anytime soon.
It's all around the village. My bike hasn't even got any gears on it. Upright with no gears, because I can't handle the gear changes, a step too far. And yeah, so I'm puffing and panting, but I live in quite a flat place, luckily. So that's okay. So yeah, and that's mine. My intention is to pay greater attention. I'm really focusing at the moment on the link between the physical body, the emotional body, and the spiritual body, and the messaging that's coming forward. And I know that my particular leaky gut syndrome is related to my healing work, because I process a lot of people's stuff in the sacral chakra for them, and my sacral chakra. So I need to make sure that the boundaries are kind of firmer. So I know that's the kind of esoteric kind of what's going on, and trauma trap there as well, my own trauma. So it's kind of like trying to not feel like I'm having some tests done at the moment, not feel like a victim in that, just feel like I'm just kind of, finding out what's what, and just seeing it as indicators to what I need to do next. So apart from you manifesting kind of green space all around, what's your new moon aspirations for yourself?
Myself, I feel like something needs to change, but I'm not sure which aspect of my life would need to change. So it's exploring those different areas, I think, and trying to find the one that feels right. Because you think, well, you could change jobs, you could change relationships, you could sell your car, you could move house, it's which all of these things could potentially change things quite a lot. But it's also taking the signs. So I was thinking, I'll move house, but then recently made a new friend in the village. So I'm like, well, maybe not then, because there's now connections locally. So it's trying to work out what area should be changing and trying to read signs for what that should be, because I'm not very clear, and I'd like to be clear, like a very clear path. This is where I'm going to, and now I know how I'm going to get there. And when I don't know what that end point is, I'm not comfortable in that space. So it's getting comfortable in that area as well.
Yeah, getting comfortable with the unknown and just surrendering and letting it happen is quite hard doing that. Just letting that kind of fall through. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've come across a lot of people that have me included, had relationship kind of Venus has been retrograde. It stopped on the 4th of September, but this kind of need to really refocus in on the self and what the self needs and come from
Mm.
that space and place. And that might not be able to be met or supported by the partnerships, the relationships you find yourself surrounded by. So there's a lot of change. In fact, there's a lot of change. I spoke to someone else this morning and just said, you know, what the hell is going on? There's people dropping down dead. There's people having major health issues, you know, work issues, money issues. It's very, you know, it's very unstable out there in the wider world. And then and this is this invitation to do things differently, I think.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of talk in the spiritual community about moving from 3D to 5D. And apparently that's now happened. So it's about people's consciousness, I guess. It's not a physical thing. The world's not going to look different, but where your consciousness sits and how you can bring those along that maybe would want to be in 5D but aren't aware of it and don't sort of know about it. And so there's a shift in consciousness happening whilst there's a death of capitalism happening across the planet. And so there's all these changes happening sort of on the earthly plane and the spiritual plane. And obviously when things change economically, those in power don't like it and fight it. So it makes it even harder for the little person trying to make it through the day. But also I understand there's been a lot of solar flares recently, the Schumann resonance, that kind of thing, that's given people physical symptoms. Do you know much about that? Is that your area at all? I know very little.
Oh, I was going to say, no, I'm going to let you lead with that. I mean, I would imagine it would bring solar flares, just thinking about it logically, would bring that up. And I've certainly been through that. I've gone through a really kind of 3 weeks of a lot. In fact, I sit in another circle and 4 out of the 5 people in this circle have all been really ill. We've kind of gone in stages. And it's like whatever our particular weakness is has come up and everyone's gone through it. And in a way that was like, I thought I was over this. Oh, this has flared up again or whatever. And bringing the emotions, the anxiety and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's all been going on for sure. So
Yeah,
interesting. Solar
it is
flares.
interesting. So I've got a post that I read about it earlier, so I can look at that to give us a bit more information, as
Yeah,
neither of us
let's have a look.
It's a list of Schumann symptoms. So some of the symptoms are disrupted sleep, which I know I've personally been experiencing, tiredness, increased need for sleep, elation and mild euphoria, cloudy thinking, headaches, lack of hunger or increased hunger, unsettledness or anxiety, dizziness, clumsiness. I know someone who's had dizziness and was off work for a couple of days. Unexplained flashes of light, unusual dreams, enhanced daydreams, numbness, tingling, hot and cold flashes. So some of that could be mistaken for menopause. But you know, the fact that something so far away could have a physical impact on an individual is quite interesting. I find it interesting.
Oh, and I think we always knew that way back in time, but we have not been allowed to know that. We're just coming back into a consciousness around the fact that all the planets have a big impact on us and their movements. Of course, they're going to affect us because they're sending, you know, there's energetic fields coming and we're made of energy. So yes, that makes perfect sense. And all of those things, 100%. I know lots of people suffering many of those different things. That's so interesting. This is it, isn't it? It's always like looking for an explanation beyond the self, not thinking you've done anything wrong. Sometimes it's just a kind of wider kind of force field having a direct thing. And there's also the invitation at the moment I've noticed with my dreams. You said funny dreams. It's like I'm replaying trauma from the past in a dream, but the ending is very different. And I'm waking up kind of like, that is done. Like, I'm not doing, you know, forget it. You know, the ending's changed. It's like I'm recoding the trauma when I'm asleep. I've done that a couple of times now. And I know that's very much of the now time as well.
It's interesting. I had a dream in the week that you could describe exactly like that. And I have repetitive dreams about the thing, but this was a very different version of it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's happening makes perfect sense because it's all about this kind of clear out. Is us getting into kind of sorting out our physical bodies, sorting out our mental bodies, and sorting out our spiritual bodies, and kind of, you know, making sure they're a really beautiful fusion, as opposed to treated as 3 separate parts and kind of not really engaged or having much awareness around how it all kind of feeds in. Because lots of people are super anxious at the moment. Someone was just saying to me that someone they know has had a massive overall breakdown. Nobody knew that was happening. And I think, you know, and generally people don't know when people are having breakdowns because people feel so kind of sensitive and vulnerable, the most natural thing in the world is actually to retreat. It's like, I'm going to go and do this in private. There's
we just don't have those communities anymore where everyone, I mean, I'm sure if, the local neighbours knew someone was struggling, we would all muck in and help, but we're so not used to it. It's not like we're all in huts around a fire where everyone knows so-and-so struggling, let's help raise the kids, let's help feed everyone. That kind of sense of community just isn't there anymore.
But it's coming back because people want to live in those communities. Like I know loads of people that are looking for communities to live in and things like that. So it's kind of like, that's the change, isn't it? People are realizing, actually, I want to go and be with these people. I want to be in exactly that situation, supported, understood, known. People know you, so you don't have to kind of go out of your way to say, listen, not in a good space right now.
Yeah, I'm also hearing the let's buy some land and go off grid. I'm hearing that from a lot of spaces because the world, the economic world we're living in is just untenable. And I don't know what the end game is of those in power, but it's not sustainable. And so I'm hearing that quite a lot from people going, yeah, let's just move away and not do this anymore. We're not going to play this game anymore. But life makes it very hard because we still want Wi-Fi. I still want Wi-Fi.
You wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
And that's why it's like with any form of change, we can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We've got to hold on to the best bits. It's just the other bits. It's this realignment of kind of values and what's important. It's not, these rat wheels that we seem to kind of find ourselves running around over and over again. Another thing that's coming up is looping. So people are finding the situation that they loop in is coming around again. So it's like the loop. So you'll find yourself dancing around your familiar loop with a slightly different take, but it's a very familiar loop. And it's like, my God, am I going to keep on doing this? And then kind of, lots of change.
So this is because you've not learned the lesson, right? The lesson keeps coming back around until you hear it. Is that right? Or is this different?
No, it is that. But it's kind of like the lesson is sometimes still continued growth. It's not endings. It's just it's just more growth and information, really, a different perspective. So this color of time is offering a different perspective on a familial loop, which is backed up by the dreams. It's a lot of funny things going on. The guy that so I'm having some tests done at the moment, and if I get referred to a consultant, the consultant I'll get referred to is the man I went to see 10 years ago when I started realizing there was something really physically deeply wrong with me. And he turned around to me and he said, "You've had 2 kids, love. What can you expect?" And I was just like, I'm not fucking accepting that.
Outrage.
I was like, there is something wrong. I used to get really annoyed with him because he never turned up for his appointments on time. He's just a swan in late. And I was like, you're not respecting my time, and you're just giving me, making stupid comments like that. And I went on to have a series of serious operations because there was some serious stuff wrong. And I had to fight all the way to get those operations, which is what started my whole kind of journey. And, that was all meant to be. But it will make me laugh if I land up having to go and see him, because it's my opportunity to kind of have a reckoning with him and just say, so much for you and your information, because I got transferred from the hospital to University College London Hospital because I was like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So be interesting to see how he is 10 years on and be like, you think you know everything, don't you? How dare you tell me that I was because I was really vulnerable in that place because I was so ill and I didn't know what was wrong with me. So I'm coming back now with knowledge and power. And
Power.
Having that. There's
a distinct lack of medics. This is a sweeping generalization, but not trusting that we know our bodies. Because there's been a lot of stuff in the news about medical gaslighting, and did you see the report about female surgeons who have a better outcome than male surgeons? All this kind of stuff is coming out, and there's so much medical gaslight, especially of women. Because the medical research is always based on men. Even things like the seatbelt in our car, they're designed for men. They're not that safe for women because they're designed for the size and weight of a man. What point I was going to make, I've lost it a second. Medical gaslighting. So we were talking about the shit show and gut stuff, and I used to have real problems every month of my muscles would kind of like spasm, and then I would mess with my digestion. And I went to the doctor and I said, I need something that's going to make it relax. And he said, if you're constipated, old white guy, if you're constipated, the last thing you want is everything to slow down. And it took me a year of horrendous, trying different things, awful procedures to get to the point of, it was muscle spasms as a result of MS and hormones. And I did need something to relax it. And so then when I could work on the fact that it was linked to my hormones, then I could resolve the issue. But he would not listen to me when I said it needs to relax it. And so you go through all this awful stuff as a woman, and you go, but I was right in the first place, and you didn't listen. Yes, all the medical research is on men. Even things as simple as, I'm going to rant, sanitary towels. It was only like a month ago that they started testing them with actual blood instead of water, and then went, oh, they're not that absorbent, are they? We've been telling you this because they're not actually bothering to test it on what the issue really is, because they don't really want to think about it, because it's just women and who cares. If men had periods, things would be different. And another thing, the birth control pill for women, they were trialing it for men, but because the side effects were so awful, they abandoned it because men wouldn't take it. The side effects that we've been living with for years and years and years.
I know, Tamar, because when I entered the medical press because I started, my first serious job was selling advertising for Nursing Times. I discovered they hadn't done any research into female kind of incontinence or female kind of health. So they only started the research in the 50s because they never thought that there was any value in looking at the female's kind of anatomy and thinking, you know, maybe when we catheterize you, you might need some kind of, you know, pain relief. They were like, no, the urethra is so. Whereas men, it was like, oh no, you know, we've got to Doesn't surprise me. And it's again this rise of the divine feminine, of kind of like the redressing the balance. It's all out there. And I'm so glad that's happening in the medical profession. No, I don't watch mainstream, so I didn't realize that, because I have my own, which I had to blog about to release my own stories, because I got gaslit time and time again. I went to doctors and I'm saying things like, I'm sure there's a direct relationship between what I'm eating and how no, there's no evidence to suggest that what you eat has any effect on you whatsoever. How can that even be a reality when we are what we eat? I mean, Rosie Connolly was selling that vibe in the 80s. It was like, but no one took it seriously. It's just like,
she was a woman.
Yes.
If it was a man, they might have paid attention. It's like the whole gut microbiome thing. I know I've said this on other podcasts. I honestly believe that is the future of medicine. Once you get the biome right, everything else is fine. So how is that not related to what you're eating?
100%. And this is why, like, I'm an aromatherapist, and this is why I love aromatherapy, because aromatherapy works with the whole body at no cost to the body. So it's a polymolecular therapy, it's called, because it works on so many different levels. Pharmaceutical drugs, monomolecular therapy, because of their ridiculous testing processes, allow them to test one active constituent, is that what I mean? Chemical anyway, per time. And it's easier to make a blocker than it is to make something that actually heals something. So all the money goes into just turning the voice of the body off. And we now live in this culture where any time anything's wrong, we go to the doctor and they say, here's a pill to turn it off. Don't listen. Don't change your behavior. Don't think about what your body's trying to tell you. Just close it off. You know, you've got choices. This is modern medicine. You can live pain-free. Meanwhile, you are in some level of ignorant bliss, having a blocker, which your brain is like, hang on a minute, she didn't listen to that message. Things get more serious. And before you know it, you've got some serious disease. It's
focusing on the symptom, not the cause, but also that means you're a repeat customer, because it's all about money. I say this to my son all the time. What's going to be the root cause? He said it will be money, because everything's about the money, because we live in capitalism.
So true. It is so true.
Wow.
Okay. So we've managed to stir ourselves right up.
Fury.
Shit show. We've managed to make ourselves really angry about the shit that's going on in the world, but at the same time, let's just have some kind of, let's breathe some kind of, to end this, let's do some deep breaths and some recall of kind of just recalibration and knowing these things and sending light to this uncovering and unveiling of all these imbalances and malpractice and all of these things that can no longer be sustained, because women are life givers. And if we're not put first, almost, I'm not saying women are better than men, then what is the future generations going to be like? It's like, come on, you don't look after your birthing pool. It's like, what do you expect? So, yeah, we'll send some divine feminine light to everybody there. And using the light in your background, actually, we'll just send that around the world, giving kind of light. Everyone be mindful of solar flares and what that means. And we will be back soon. If you could leave comments in the box wherever that you find this posted, that would be really useful for us to understand if you found this useful. Tamar, this is your show. You can close.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Good to talk to you as always, Claire. And we'll see you soon.
Bless.
Thank
Blessed
you.
be everyone. Take care.